All right, so this is a follow-up to my video on last week on Ta-Nehisi Coates. As I mentioned in that video, I very recently learned who this guy was. In fact, I have known who Ta-Nehisi Coates is for such a short amount of time, I didn't even know how to pronounce his name. So if in this video you hear me say Ta-Nehisi Coates, that's just force of habit, but I'm pretty sure I have it down. To summarize, I was sitting there minding my own business on March 3rd when I noticed that Black Superman was trending on Twitter. So I did the thing I usually do when something comics related is trending, and I just found a strategic tweet to retweet and added my 2 cents. And then later that day, young Ripa 59 or Eric July, who's one of the only people that I know of who complains about these issues, who actually does read comics, mentioned that the Superman movie featuring a black Superman was written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. He went on to how he's a garbage writer, he's an activist, and all that kind of thing. Now, the reason I didn't take his words too heavily, is because, man, I love Eric July. I rarely hear him say things that surprise me. So when I see him describe this guy I've never heard of as a garbage writer and an activist, I kind of take it with a grain of salt. And another thing that he mentioned in that same video is that he'd been writing Captain America. Another thing I have a history of is not reading the names on the comics that I consume. So when he said that he's also writing the current run of of Captain America, I said, "Hey, I'm reading that. It's not so bad." Now we fast forward to last week, where Jordan Peterson learned of the him being portrayed as Red Skull. Y'all saw this video. I'm just summarizing in case anyone watching this somehow wasn't already aware. The main point of my other video, which will be linked below, is that Ta-Nehisi Coates was not saying that Jordan Peterson is the Red Skull. I think only someone who didn't read the comic would think that, or who read it in bad faith with such a negative impression of Ta-Nehisi Coates, which we'll get to, that they kind of lost that. Ta-Nehisi Coates was portraying the Red Skull as an embodiment of the overall alt-right rabbit hole, or if you prefer, the intellectual dark web. Anyone who is associated with that could have been used as a personification for any at any particular time. It just so happens that in the infamous panel, this one panel in a comic book that had the 10 rules for life, that was like so obviously Jordan Peterson that you'd need to be, I don't know what you would have to be to miss that point. But if you take it within the context of the larger book that that one panel is in, you could swap out Jordan Peterson for anyone. Like, I'm sure the talking points of the Red Skull could just as easily have been said by, say, Ben Shapiro or Stefan Molyneux, or that kind of thing. I knew that I was going to make a follow up video because I have since learned of who Ta-Nehisi Coates is. And I gotta say, we're not gonna read his entire wiki, but on the little that I know of this guy, people have called him things like race hustler, things like activist, things like race baiter, that kind of thing. And from the research that I've done on him, I've seen very little evidence to the contrary, quite frankly. As a matter of fact, one of the people who was angry in my comments for last week's video, he gave a quote that Ta-Nehisi said about 9/11, which was very yikesy. You know what? Since I'm mentioning it, I'll just read it. Let me just fetch it. I didn't prepare this tab. So, I stood on the roof of an apartment building with your mother. This is a book that he's writing to his son. So, yeah, I stood on the roof of an apartment building with your mother, your Aunt Chana, and her boyfriend Jamal. Everyone knew someone who was missing. But looking out upon the ruins of America, my heart was cold. These three ellipses right here. I don't know what was cut out, okay, but I seriously doubt these ellipses are part of the actual text. So let's go to the actual quote that the guy cited to me. Bin Laden was not the first man to bring terror to that section of the city. I never forgot that, neither should you. And there was more that I don't feel like finding, but you can go into the comments of that video if you want. But when I read that, I was like, ooh, yikes. And like I was saying, I'm open to the possibility that there's a broader context that will make this text I just read a little look less bad than it looks. However, this is a quote from a book, and I'm not reading a whole damn book to find out the whole context of this. So, the bottom line is he's written for a bunch of left to center left newspapers and that kind of thing. So the label of activist writer, race hustler, and that kind of thing, I found very little to no evidence to the contrary. So that's that. I get it, and you know I don't have an issue with things like the typical things that the progressive left is concerned with, things like race relations, LGBT issues, and things like that. Like the notion that comic book fans are like these straight white dudes who hate women, and whenever they see anyone in their comic that's like not a straight white dude, they kind of like lose their shit. Like I don't, and I don't mind as long as it's not about that. And as I was thinking, the notion of this man, this activist, writing Captain America that I'd been enjoying for about 2 years, and that I kind of missed these. I was like, is it me? Did I really miss something? And there is one clue that I kind of took for granted, which is the Daughters of Liberty here. Let me go here. So in the arc for Captain America, one of the things that happens is Captain America gets framed for murder and convicted. So he gets thrown in jail. And Sharon Carter, I think it's Sharon, I keep forgetting. Peggy Carter. There we go. One of the Carters, anyway. She assembles this group of women to break him out, and this happened pretty early in the run. And he had been working with the Daughters of Liberty basically ever since. So, in the actual issue where Jordan Peterson was imitated in that one panel. Later on, there was a scene where Stephen was drugged and he was being beaten up, and Peggy, no, Sharon. Is it Sharon? Let me just. Yeah, it's Sharon. There we go. So Sharon, who's wearing like this kind of Iron Man suit, flies in to save him, and I didn't think anything of it because he'd been working with these ladies for over a year, that's for sure. So that, like the fact that the Daughters of Liberty are a thing, because if you scroll all the way down here, you can see this. They were created by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and their first appearance was, as you can see, in Captain America Volume 9. It was published about 2 years ago. So this is old news. And as I said, he'd been working with them ever since. So it kind of fades into the background. And what made it tolerable to me, or I guess what made it not a big deal to me, that's a better way of putting it, is that even though they were women, it wasn't about them being women. Like if every other mission, one of them would like drop a little quip like, this job needs a woman's touch," then that would have been cringy, and that would have annoyed me. But it wasn't for the most part. Because in my research, actually, I noticed this little gem, which I definitely read, but I had forgotten about. This was in Captain America 25, I believe. The context isn't that important. This one page, I gotta say, is pretty damning. So we have it's Sharon in here in this Iron Man suit. This was her first time using it, and she's beating up this the villain of that particular arc, and she was feeling really good. And if we zoom in here, and she goes, "Yas, Queen, yas," and then, "Damn it, karma for cultural appropriation." Yeah, I I absolutely read this. I absolutely rolled my eyes when I read that panel, and I moved on because, again, if it was just things like that, maybe I would have given up. And if I had known who Ta-Nehisi Coates was at the time, and if I had known that he wrote this particular comic, would I have given up? Maybe, maybe not. It's difficult to tell. But the fact that I was ignorant of those things kind of let me write this off as, it's just like one offshoot. It's like that scene towards the end of Endgame where like all the male heroes are down and out for a second, and then all the women heroes like they assemble to have their moment. That was like very contrived. I probably did roll my eyes or at least say, "Okay, yes, I get it." But did it ruin the movie? Of course not. It's just like a thing that you do, and things like this is karma for cultural appropriation because this white chick said yes, queen. It's easy to write off. I'm pretty sure propaganda in comics today is as bad now as it was back in the 40s. Absolutely. Um, you know, I'm gonna use propaganda in the proper sense of like getting your message out there. Sure, I see no reason why it would be any different. I Before I move on though, I do want to share in in the message board where I picked up that picture. Towards the end, someone put the SJW glasses on her. Very fitting. So yeah, kudos to you, Anonymous. Ooh, hopefully I didn't accidentally flash things. Like this isn't 4chan. It looks like it, but yeah. Ta-Nehisi Coates' run as Captain America is for me anyway, it's like a perfect storm of things that I was ignorant about that led to me enjoying the comic. Again, and anyone who reads comics knows this. Any ongoing monthly series will have lulls. They'll have a bad issue every now and then. Sometimes there'll be an entire arc that's bad that lasts maybe 1 to 3 issues, hopefully. And it happens. On the flip side, one thing that I am very grateful for in my research on Ta-Nehisi Coates, I discovered from people who were complaining about Captain America as a brand as a whole that Mark Waid is apparently one of the best Captain America writers of all time. The guy who said this said he was easily in the top three. So, hey, I discovered a new writer, and yeah, I'm probably gonna, you know, look into Mark Waid's Captain America stories and cherry pick from there. We'll see what happens. But as far as Ta-Nehisi being a bad writer, And the notion that these SJWs are ruining gaming, that's the kind of thing that we hear a lot. The numbers don't lie. So this is a frame from a video by Comics by Perch, and he did an analysis of the sales. I tried to get these numbers myself before, independently, before stumbling onto this video, but it was much more difficult to obtain than I wanted to. So this is great, and as we can see, the first edition of Captain America. This is the Ta-Nehisi Coates run. It sold 167,000 copies, and to a number two, 61,000. Now, it's important to note that it's normal for issue number one to have a bump in sales, so that drop off to issue number two is expected, but it shouldn't be this much. Normally, sales for a comic book after issue number one will drop in the order of 40% at the max, which means, and I'm doing some math here. Normally, on a typically popular comic, the sales for number two would be something like 100,000, and we're you know 40,000 under that, and then it was just declining and declining and declining from there on. So, whether or not Ta-Nehisi Coates was ruining Captain America by writing for it, if our metric is sales, this graph is crystal clear, despite the fact that I personally enjoyed it. And again, the fact that I don't care who writes my comics and I didn't know who this guy was, even if I did, if this perfect storm of ignorance led me to enjoy an unpopular series for roughly 2 years, for over 2 years, I'm putting that in the win column, honestly. There's another thing that I also didn't know, and this is specific to Captain America. It wasn't clear to me in how much danger Captain America was as a brand at the time. They had put him through a bunch of arcs that were unpopular, and I didn't know because I was just reading along. As I've covered on this channel before, what got me back into comics after many years of being like a casual comic reader, like I'd read crossover events and things like that, but what got me back into like committing to reading a series was when I heard that Sam Wilson was going to be Captain America, and I wasn't intrigued because, oh, finally a black superhero. I'm gonna read someone that looks like me, and that makes me like comics. That's not what that was about. What intrigued me was, holy shit, Steve Rogers is walking away. Like, why? And I wanted to know more about that. So what I did to get the full context, I read all of Volume 7 of Captain America. As you can see, that particular volume was published in the early 2010s. And Sam Wilson's run was 2015, 2016. The point I'm getting at, because after Sam Wilson walked away from the Shield, they relaunched the Captain America series at least twice more since then, including Coates's run. And learning this, putting this in context, me, do you plan to start looking into authors more often now? No. I don't see any reason to change my behavior. Because some activist wrote a couple, to my view, not that cringy comics. I swear to God, it's possible that like that I've been cucked, that I've been blue pilled, and that all these notions just flew over my head because I'm such a soy boy. That it's possible, but man, things that people find cringy, I usually find those cringy too, okay? So for sure, I rolled my eyes at that cultural appropriation quip I just showed you. But again, it's one quip. It's fine. It's not a big deal to me that, Sharon Carter assembled a group of women to break Stephen out of jail, and then he's been working with them ever since. It's not a big deal to me. Is that me? Maybe. But yeah, I just reminded myself of the point that I was going to make. So for the diehard comic book fans who had been like seriously following Captain America for their whole life, they rebooted this series like many times in under 10 years. Wait, 2013 to yeah, so in 8 years, okay? And it reminded me of me on this channel about a month ago. I fucking bitched about DC Comics and how they rebooted their fucking universe too much for me. And as a result, I am done with them as a brand at all, except for The Flash. I'm still going to read The Flash. So yeah, when I realized that for a Captain America fan, Captain America was rebooted even more often in an even shorter amount of time, and on top of that, the last reboot they put this jackass in charge. Yeah, I get why they would be upset. I'm calling him a jackass because they would. I see why people would hate him, but to me, it's not that bad. Yeah, that about covers it. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, first of all, I do these streams every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, and please give this video a thumbs up. It helps the channel a lot. And on that note, I'll see you soon.